episode of the Cozy Corner of Cinema. This is episode number 217, being recorded on Friday, May 29th, 2026, with a hot cup of coffee. I got one of the cats actually right here, just kind of sitting here. It's a warm day out. We got the overhead fan on, producing some wonderful breeze. The windows are open. The cats are running around like maniacs, having the time of their lives. So make sure when you leave the house you're dressing appropriately for the weather. There's been a couple times where I'm like, oh, it's probably not too bad out. And I step outside and I go, oh my gosh, I should have worn shorts today. But it's a great time to be outside wearing sunscreen, or to be in a nice air-conditioned cinema. Plenty of new releases out, people are talking about. There's a lot of critically acclaimed films out that are people are discussing and recommending to one another. So a lot of stuff coming out. Using this time wisely with plenty of writing accomplished, plenty of reading accomplished. I'm in the throes of one of Sam Wasserman's fascinating books, The Big Goodbye, about the making of Chinatown, which will make me want to rewatch the film because I've only seen Chinatown once. It's a quality film, Roman Polanski, 1976. And Sam Wasson, I think I mentioned before, also wrote the fantastic The Path to Paradise, a Francis Ford Coppola story about the filmmaking career of not just Francis Ford Coppola, but also the trials and tribulations of American Zoetrope leading up to the pre-production of Megalopolis from 2023. I listened to that book, and that is a fascinating account of just one of just cinema's great artists, and I think has been consistent. I've said it before. I don't think I quite agree with. I'm a big fan of Bret Easton Ellis's podcast, but he's quite adamant that he never made another good film after Apocalypse Now, and I just don't agree with that. I think he's been a pretty quality filmmaker just about every decade. Maybe not so much in the '90s, but anyways. That's something else entirely. Recommend that book for sure, and this book is absolutely exceptional. Cannes just concluded this past weekend, and this year's Palme d'Or went to Fjord, from director. What is his name? I always forget. Christian Mungiu. I don't know if I'm saying that right. He won the Palme d'Or previously in 2007 for 4 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days, which is a very good film as well. And I've only seen that film and I think it was his last film, RMN, from 2022, which was pretty good. I remember thinking that wasn't bad. But we'll see. We'll see when this becomes available. The how it is. Got the cat climbing on me. I'll go more into this year's Cannes as well. I've been reading a little bit about underwhelming overall reception to the films this year. I'll get more into it after I'm finished with my favorite films of the 21st century. But I may have mentioned before. I think it kind of is going in line with my general feeling. I don't know if you heard that or not. The cat just knocked something over. Let me pause this for a moment. Sorry about that. The cat just knocked something over, and I wanted to take care of it before I continue talking. But what I was saying before with the reception to Cannes is that it's kind of been indicative of, I think, 2026 so far as a year for films. I have not been overly impressed this year, with the exception of a handful of really exceptional films. But that will be more talked about after I'm through with this list. Maybe I'll wait till the end of June to do an official halfway point for the year, because right now it's not looking. I'm looking at my favorites of the year so far, and I can only imagine a handful, maybe a couple of these that I unless the year is just not much better, that I can really say are really exceptional films. But with that said, I'm gonna have another cup of this coffee, and we're gonna go right into the next film. And the next film, in total juxtaposition from Martin Scorsese's Silence, which I gotta say, that episode that I recorded, I don't feel confident in getting in my thoughts across. I think a film like Silence is so difficult to talk about in terms of not just the literal scenes going on in the film, but what a lot of the meanings are, my own relationship with the content, with my own faith. And it's, I delayed putting off that episode because I tried recording it a couple times and I was just not getting my point across. I don't think I still am not confident that I did. I think I definitely repeated myself a couple of the same points too much. But Silence is a tricky film to tackle because there's so much going on there. And like I said, I intentionally did not rewatch any of these films. Opening up the closet if you hear that for the cats. But something that is a little bit lighter, that is not quite as heavy thematically or ideologically, is back in 2008. I don't know how many comedies I got on this list. Let's see. I had, in terms of straight up comedies, I guess you could count In Bruges. That's more of a comedy drama. Napoleon Dynamite, I would say, is the only outright comedy on my list, and this is the only other one as well. And it was funny when I was putting together my list. I actually had quite a number of comedies on there because I just love comedies. They're just I don't know. I'm a guy who likes really like silly comedies. A lot of dumb stuff that I end up laughing at that a lot of people don't. But yeah, well, it's just one of my favorite comedies right here. 2008 is Adam McKay wrote and directed, or written and directed by Adam McKay, is Step Brothers. Will Ferrell, John C. Reilly, Mary Steenburgen, Richard Jenkins, Adam Scott. I mean, it's a film where it's a hang-up film in its own right, where the plot really doesn't, I mean, kick in until maybe the third act. It's maybe halfway through. I mean, it's a film that I think is everybody basically knows about, so there's almost no point to even really have to go too much into depth of a plot. It's another one of these films where it's more just about individual scenes that make me laugh. I mean, this is one where I intentionally don't watch it too often, and maybe once in a while, because it's a film that, I mean, I've seen this countless. I could not tell you how many times I've seen this film. I mean, I've seen so many, and I'm not even just talking about from, sitting down from beginning to end, but scenes just, on their own, or when I was in school, people were playing scenes off YouTube and stuff and quoting the film. I mean, it was like a big film when this came out, and I remember seeing this in theaters and not totally responding to it, but then you just watching it again and again and everyone talking about it. And this was, it's a film that is just total cozy, in its own right. Like in terms of the comedies on my list, what I find so funny about Napoleon Dynamite and what I find so funny about Step Brothers are different things. I think Napoleon Dynamite has its own kind of coziness to it, where you just love these characters so much, and you love their little, their little characteristics, their little like mannerisms they have, the characteristics. Here, Step Brothers is such a big film, and it's a film that if you're with, you're completely with. If you're not, then you're going to think that it's going to be a grueling kind of film, because essentially what we have here is we have Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly's characters are these two 40-year-old men who still live with their parents, their single parents, played by Mary Steenburgen and Richard Jenkins. And they get married, they often move in with each other, and it is chaos. I mean, it is, these two go from hating each other and doing comical amounts of damage to each other and to the house, to becoming best friends and the problems that comes with. And then it's a film where you just, it's hard to even talk about. You just kind of have to talk about individual scenes, individual moments, a lot of improv in this, a lot of the ways that these characters respond to situations. Adam Scott as well in the film, who when he pops up, he is just so funny in the film. I just recently saw, at the time of this recording, Hokum, his new film, and it really made me appreciate how strong of an actor he is. I think he is exceptional in Hokum. I think he is so good as a realistic, smug jerk writer who goes to this hotel, and he's very, he's very off-putting. He's very cruel to the staff, but he's just so great in that film. He holds that film together so well with just his performance. And then I'm sitting there and I'm like, wow, this is Derek from Step Brothers, who his introduction is him berating his wife and doing this ridiculous a cappella of "Sweet Child of Mine." And this, I mean, even just thinking about it now, it's just making me laugh. It's just his introduction to the film is them doing this ridiculous a cappella in the car, and then he has this swagger about him, this very douchey mid 2000s sort of attitude to him. But he's just so funny in the film. Adam Scott, I know he was on like Parks and Recreation and stuff. I'd seen that show when it was on, and he never really. I thought he was good in that. But I think this was the first time where we really kind of had a presence to him, where he really took the scene and made it his own. He wasn't just a background character. Richard Jenkins as well, I think, is somebody who is his annoyance and his frustration with everything that's going on in the film is just so funny as well. The fact that he is able to really he feels so grounded in this this film has like almost a heightened reality sort of aspect in it because it is so it gets so big and it gets so loud, and these I mean these two 4-year-old men are there's this whole ridiculous scene when they don't want to go to the park because these like teenage, or there's like not even teenage, these like bullies, like 10-year-old bullies are like beating the crap out of them, and it doesn't feel like this this world, but Richard Jenkins is there to ground it. And I think he's one of these actors. I've seen him in so many dramas, and I've seen him in so many films where he is the straight guy, but he plays it so well. He has this, I wouldn't even quite say monotone way he has, he says his dialogue in a lot of films, but he is able to ground a lot of films that he's in. And I think that he is somebody who in terms of, he's so naturally funny, but if he's honed in right, because I've seen him in some other more comedic roles that I felt didn't work for him. But I think he is just, I mean, he's one of these actors who he could be in a film that I'm not a fan of or not really crazy about. I think of like the remake of Nightmare Alley, which I really didn't respond to. I really was not a fan of that film. But he is so good in that film. He is one of the highlights of it. There's one moment where, in the third act, where he comes to a realization about something, and his reaction and the way he says this line of dialogue has always stuck with me. I think he is just such a terrific actor. And Mary Steenburgen as well. She is there as well. She doesn't have as much. She's working a lot of her comedy is working a lot off of like Richard Jenkins and more reacting to the situations where Richard Jenkins is an active kind of participant in trying to stop what's going on. I mean, the subplots in this film are just so ridiculous. There is a whole subplot where Derek's wife, played by Catherine Hahn, is trying to have a relationship with John C. Reilly, and they're having to sneak away. And I should also say that there's two versions of the film, and I think that this was a period of time where these Judd Apatow produced movies where they were putting out these DVDs with like 2-hour versions of the movie, and I think that there's a lot of stuff that are extended in the 2-hour version that is funny, and then there's a lot of stuff that I think kind of drags out a little bit. I know like Walk Hard had the same issue, which actually was also on this list as well, but I had to take it off because it's an very, very funny film as well, with one of my favorite soundtracks to a film ever. But I think where it is here, even at an hour 38, that's like a good runtime. I think when you have an 80 to 100 minute runtime for a comedy, that's good. But we were getting a lot of these films that were like really kind of pushing the runtime and pushing it. Which it's one thing, even if you like a film, even if you like a comedy, it's like, well, how long can this really sustain it? It's like you go to see a stand-up comedian. I forgot who said it. It was like Jerry Seinfeld or someone said like you have them for like the first hour 10, and then after that you got to cut them looser. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but it is that thing. But I think what the film does is that right when it starts to become, you start to wonder where it's just going. It has this just ridiculous third act, a quote unquote plot of Derek at this helicopter leasing event, and this just hilarious finale. I mean, It's so tricky to talk about, and it's funny to say Martin Scorsese's Silence and Step Brothers are both tricky to talk about because it's for different reasons. Because Silence is a film where there's so much going on, there's so much to peel back, and there's so much that I bring my own kind of faith, my own kind of feelings into that, and how much that film moved me, and if anything, actually kind of reaffirmed my faith and really what I got away from it. Whereas a film like Step Brothers, I'm just thinking about all these just hilarious, these ridiculous, funny scenes, these quotes I'm still thinking of, when they're just smashing the house to get, they're just like tearing the house apart with seemingly no consequence, and when they're going to the job interviews and they're wearing tuxedos, and just the way that John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell are so naturally funny. John C. Reilly as well, I think, is also just one of the great actors. Period. One of the great contemporary actors. He just plays comedy and drama so well, in a way I find more so than Will Ferrell. Will Ferrell, I think, is a very good dramatic actor when he has good material. I really like that film he did, Everything Must Go, from 20, I forgot what year it was, where he with Rebecca Hall in that. It's a dramatic role, but he's very good in it. And then I've weirdly found that I really have not watched any of his comedies in like the past decade or so, just because I think that he is somebody who is very funny with somebody like Adam McKay who can hone that in and really kind of put it together well. Because Anchorman, Talladega Nights, this, and the other guys are all just so funny. I mean, they're just. I mean, Step Brothers, of the four. I know he did Anchorman too as well. I don't think it's, has some moments in there I think are funny, but overall, I don't. It's not one I revisit. But just the editing, knowing what jokes to leave in, what to cut, how the tone of this film is so heightened and so big, but I mean, hey, results may vary, especially with comedies. It's gonna work for you or it's not. You're gonna say this is a loud and obnoxious film that's very big, and that's fine. Comedy is, I think, the hardest to recommend, because there are films that are considered classic comedies that I don't respond to, just because I don't find them very funny. I'm not really concerned about the plot per se, because here the plot does not, to me, yeah, it does not matter. I'm just enjoying, these characters are just so big and are just so obnoxious, and they're horrible people. They do horrible things, but it's not in an off-putting way, because the when you have Richard Jenkins' character who is rightfully calling them out, there's this one great part involving his boat that, I mean, if you haven't seen the film, I won't give it away, but Richard Jenkins rightfully calls them out for the situation, and says, like, this is ridiculous. We got to get these people out of our house. This is almost like a horror movie at times. Yeah, it's one that I don't revisit often, but when I do, I just find it so funny. It's that great feeling where I'm missing dialogue because I'm holding my stomach laughing so hard at this. And this is almost 20 years old, and I have found this film to age just so well. I just still replay scenes in my head. I still quote this film all the time. I think this is one of the most quotable films ever. And just one of the, when people say, like, there's no, the comedies in the 21st century, it kind of hit a certain peak, and then nothing really so much anymore. And you know what, to a certain extent, I do have to agree. And I don't know what it is really. I've seen a lot of great comedies since. Even talking about Friendship with Tim Robinson, I think it's maybe the closest comedy, maybe since this era, that I have watched again and again, and actually makes my stomach hurt from laughing. But I've seen a lot of good comedies and a lot of funny comedies, but am I watching them again and again? And I'm really not. And I don't know what it is. I think just different era. The 90s were an era of comedy, the 2000s were an era of comedy, the 2010s were, and I just, we'll see what happens. I hope that we kind of reach another resurgence like we did, because ultimately I just haven't really been seeing many comedies in the past, while that I've really responded to besides Friendship. Which I intentionally didn't put on this list because I think it's just too recent. I mean, at the time of this recording, it's been out for less than a year. So I really want to give that time. But it's the only one of these that I'm consistently talking about and quoting and rewatching, and. But Step Brothers, man, it's just so funny. What can I say about it? I would love to see Adam McKay come back doing another one of these types of films, like with Will Ferrell. Because his output since has not been I've been too interested in. The Big Short was pretty good. I think there's some really good directing in that film. I didn't see Don't Look Up. It was a film that wasn't particularly on my radar, and I don't even really know why I didn't watch it, because I try to see all the Oscar stuff. I think that was just at a time when I wasn't trying to keep up as much, and I just wasn't that interested in it, and then it wasn't a priority. I mean, I'll watch it, but I've everything I've seen of it, I don't think I'm gonna like it. It seems a bit too obvious for me. But yeah, Step Brothers, it's just so funny. I mean, I don't I can just talk about individual scenes all day, but I'm gonna move on from there and talk about the next film from 2001, I believe. I'm pretty bad with years. 2001. Now, at the beginning of this, I talked about adaptation. And I talked about Nicolas Cage's performance in that and how he was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actor, and he lost to the main performance in this film from director Antoine Fuqua and writer David Ayer. Training Day. Denzel Washington winning his Academy Award for Best Actor with his performance as Alonzo in this. We have Ethan Hawke in this film, and Training Day is a film that I find just so enjoyable to watch. And a large part of that is because of how good Denzel Washington and Ethan Hawke play off of one another. Because this is a film that, when I say it's funny, I mean, I'm just laughing at scenes out of context, where I'm just remembering the way that Alonzo is just going to task with Jake, Ethan Hawke's character, and just messing with him the whole time. Denzel's performance in this is so good. And he has such a natural, I mean, Denzel has such a natural charisma as is that even some not so great films, he's able to make his own. And here in this, his performance, I think, really holds up so much of the film. Not to say that it is not a good film or anything like that. I mean that without this performance, I kind of wonder how much the film would work. But Training Day, Antoine Fuqua, we have Ethan Hawke's character. It's his first day. Wanting to be a detective in L.A., but he's going to spend the day with Alonzo, played by Denzel Washington, and they're going to patrol the streets of L.A. He's going to teach him the ways, but Alonzo, he's very, he's that Denzel right off the bat. He's really no nonsense. He is one of these guys who, he'll be your best friend 1 second. He'll stab, he'll maybe stab you in the back the next second. He's as funny as he is frightening. Where if you were in the situation, you'd be on edge like Ethan Hawke is. But watching this, just some of the scenes of Alonzo just messing with him, like I mean, right off the bat, when they have their first scene together at a diner. The way they end the scene, the way that Alonzo, the way that Jake is trying to get on Alonzo's like good side, but the way that Alonzo is just not having it. The way they end the scene is so funny. But from there, we start to learn more about the corruption that is going on in the police force, and Jake is between a rock and a hard place, sort of learning about the ins and outs of the LA police force and whether to do the right thing or to put his passions and ambitions in the forefront. And from there, it just gets more and more heightened. It's a solid script. There are things they set up in the first act of the movie that come back to the end of the movie. There's one scene I remember the first time watching it, and this is a great feeling. And if a screenwriter can do this and do this to me, then that is the highest of compliments. Where there's a point in the film where a character is in such a bad situation. I mean, there is no possible way out of this situation. And I am sitting there on the edge of my seat, and I am thinking I have absolutely no idea how you were going to get out of the situation, unless it was something which a lot of films are very convenient with doing. Was a plot, a script cliche that a lot of films do, which I don't like, is a character is about to shoot someone. Oh, I'm gonna get you, and then oh man, there's another character who happens to shoot him from. I was here the whole time, and I shot him, and I saved you, and they don't do that because what they do is that in this situation where everything is hopeless and there is really no way to get out of it, they set something up early on that pays off, and you could say, well, that's a film convenience, but it's like, but for the film it works. What are the chances of that? I don't know, but in this area, yeah, you could see it happening. Ethan Hawke just gives a fantastic performance in this. I don't think I really need to say as much about just how strong of an actor he was, especially in this period. The variety of films that he was doing, the Linklater films, and then doing films like this, and even now, popping up in stuff like Black Phone 1 and 2, and I'm trying to think what else he had been in recently that really kind of stood. I mean, First Reformed, of course, I've talked about before. I think he's just amazing in that film. He's a great actor, and he can play kind of nervous and timid, but then in other films he play very confident. I think about it like his performance in Lord of War with Nicolas Cage, which is I think, very underappreciated film. Apparently, they're doing a sequel to that. I don't know what the status is on that, but Lord of War, I always had kind of seen as the end of an era for Nick Cage before he started doing a lot of straight to video stuff. But that is a very, very underappreciated film that almost could have even made the list. Honestly, I really love that film. But yeah, Ethan Hawke is great here when he has to play confident, when he really kind of has to stand up. But at the same time, he's still being, he's still being like slapped around. He's still in a situation where he has absolutely no idea what to do. He's a rock in a hard place here. Scott Glenn as well is very good in the film. The way that they set up just Alonzo's connections to all these people, the way he can kind of casually go into Scott Glenn's house and they have this sort of back and forth, the feeling of old friends. But then the way that Denzel plays Alonzo is just so unpredictable. He can be very funny and wisecracking, very charismatic. But then when things start getting bad, even at a point when Alonzo has his back up against the wall, Denzel radiates this natural charisma and this natural likability where even though you're not supposed to be on his side, he is just so good in this performance. He has his whole monologue that he has at the end of the film is it makes the hairs on your arm stand. It has one of my favorite lines of any film ever, which I'm not going to repeat here because in the context of the film, in the context out of the film, it might seem questionable, but he's giving it such a passionate performance, and he is so, you just see you see like the veins kind of popping out of his head, and when he says it works so well. Antoine Fuqua as well, he went on to do quite a number of things. And actually, funnily enough, I really enjoyed the last Equalizer that he did, Equalizer 3, because that film, it is an action film for sure, but it's like kind of like the way that Fuqua works with Denzel. It's like, yeah, he in the other two films he's a good action star. He's very enjoyable. You love watching him. But in Equalizer 3, it's a different. It almost feels like it feels like a different kind of film where it's not as concerned with the action. It's more about these like more quieter, reflection with this character. You see him in these sequences, kind of reflecting on the damage that he's done in the last two films and where he is in his life and wanting to kind of, put that all behind him. But he has these inner demons, and it's so well done. And it's just so surprising that they would go that way instead of doing it what the Equalizer 2 was, which was a fine enough, action sequel. But, it gets so big and ridiculous. And I think David Ayer went on to do like a bunch of. He did a bunch of I think he did some DC stuff. Yeah, he actually. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. I think actually, let me pull it up here. Yeah, he directed Fury 2014, which is a fantastic film. That is one of my favorite films of the 21st century, and also End of Watch, which is excellent as well, which I think is very underseen. I'm a real big fan of that film with Jake Gyllenhaal and Michael Pena. But together, I mean, just the combination of Fuqua's directing, David Ayer's writing, who both of them have had ups and downs for me. They've both done stuff that I really liked and didn't like, but together with Denzel's performance, with Ethan Hawke, it's like a big. And I was going to mention Eva Mendes as well. She comes in and out of the movie, but she is great too. You do feel for her character. She's living in this kind of rough neighborhood, just trying to be with trying to give a good life for her daughter, but she gets kind of caught up in all this. And the third act, man, I just love in this film. And it is a total, almost kind of not quite a Mexican standoff, but it is really everything comes crashing down together, and it's just so enjoyable. It's just I just love watching it. Every time I watch this film, it just brings a smile to me, and every time I watch it, it is just so enjoyable. I can watch it again and again, in part because of how good all the performances, especially Denzel Washington's and Ethan Hawke's as well. They work so well together, and it's a film that I even the last time I saw it, which was in theaters, I was just having a blast. I love this film, and that is gonna wrap it up for this episode. So. We got two more films to talk about next time. We got two really great ones. I mean, these are all been great, but the next two, boy oh boy, are real standouts. And that's going to do it for this episode. The cat is looking all around the closet. I'm going to see what she's up to, and I'm going to let you guys go. So thank you so much for listening, and until next time, all the best, and take care.